Hi guys, happy Monday. I hope you guys had a great weekend. As most of you know, we were supposed to take our Old Worthington field trip in May, which we sadly will not be able to do. But next week, I think our plan is to have the Old Worthington people who were going to come to school and do the presentation for you guys before we are going to go on our field trip. They have offered to do a Zoom presentation with you guys. So I thought this week we would do some Old Worthington things. And one of the things that third grade does every year is the third grade teachers read about Old Worthington to the students. So this week I'm going to read a chapter from They Came to Worthington, A Family Adventure to you guys every day this week. So then you'll have a little bit of background knowledge. You'll know a little bit before your presentation next week. I might have you do an activity to go with this. I might have you write something down, or I might just have you listen. But one thing I want you guys to be doing every time I read is thinking of any questions you might have, anything you might wonder and want to know more about, and maybe jot those down on a Post-it note, piece of paper, whatever. So then when we do our presentation and the people from Old Worthington who are in charge of it come to our Zoom meeting and present for you guys, you can ask them your questions. So I'm going to start off with chapter 1 today. And again, it's called They Came to Worthington, A Family Adventure. So just sit and listen. Chapter 1, The Adventure Begins. Papa's home. Mama, Papa's home. It was early in August of 1803. Jedediah Talbot ran past the row of tidy houses, burst through his own front gate, and jumped on the stoop, not bothering to use the steps. Mama appeared in the door. Jed, I do declare you are the noisiest boy in Berlin, Connecticut. Mama was smiling. Papa's here. He just rode into town with Mr. Kilbourne. They are back from the Ohio country. Having delivered his message, Jed turned and ran back up the dusty road towards the village square. Mama turned towards the kitchen. Jed's twin sister, Hannah, and his Aunt Sarah were breaking up hard cones of sugar for cake. Hannah, come quickly. Papa has just arrived. Come along, Sari. We must hurry to the commons to greet your brother. As Hannah, Mama, and Aunt Sarah approached the commons, they saw that Jed was already there. He was holding the reins of Sugar, Papa's horse. Close by, they saw Papa standing with James Kilbourne, a group of young men. From across the commons, James Kilbourne's wife, Lucy, who was carrying young Brian. Their 4 other children were racing to greet their father. Hannah pulled from her apron pocket a lump of sugar she had been grinding. She held it up to the mouth of the big brown horse. Here you are, Sugar. I haven't forgotten what you like best. Just then Papa saw them. He hurriedly shook hands with several of the men. Then turning towards his family, he opened his arms wide and hugged his 3 womenfolk all at once. Hannah, Sari, Louisa, has Jed been taking good care of you while I've been away this summer? These 2 youngsters certainly have grown. They're the best-looking 8-year-olds between here and Liberty Township in Ohio. I can vouch for that. And Sarah, my little sister, is prettier than ever. Louisa, just wait until I tell you about Ohio country. Papa had so much to say. His words began to tumble over one another. Matthew, I'm so glad you're home. Let's go down to the house and you can tell us about it, Mama said. She took one of Papa's arms as they headed towards the corner of the commons. Aunt Sarah took his other arm and they walked through the soft grass under the shady trees. Hannah and Jed led Sugar down the sunny road toward home. While Mama and Sarah cleared away the dishes after supper, Papa told Jed and Hannah about some of the things he had seen on his long journey into Ohio country. He had gone with James and Lemuel Kilbourne and 7 young men that the Scioto Company had hired. They were an advanced party to clear the land and build cabins. The children listened to Papa tell how the party stopped in Fort Pitt for supplies before they boarded flatboat boats to pull down the Ohio River to Wheeling. He told how they watched for deer along the banks of the river and how the beavers dammed the streams that flowed into it. Papa explained, "We landed on the Ohio side of the river and followed paths into the woodland heading westward. The path was so narrow in some places that we were going to have to work to get our wagons through." Papa looked up to see Mama and Aunt Sarah coming into the room. "Let's sit around the table," he said. "I want to tell you what we've been doing since we left last May. To begin with, the place we've chosen is on the hill above the Whetstone River, although the Indians call it the Olentangy River." "But Matt," Aunt Sarah interrupted, "I thought surely the Scioto Company would have settled along the Scioto River." "It didn't work out that way," Papa explained. "When James Coburn and Nathaniel Little went west last year to choose our site, they picked the Scioto River Valley. The land we chose did not become available until after Mr. Coburn and Mr. Little returned to Connecticut last year. The price was $20,000 for 16 acres, which figures out to be about $1.25 an acre. That's a pretty good price. Think about what you can buy right now for $1.25. Could you buy an acre of land? Could you go to the store and buy many things for $1.25? Maybe think of what you could buy today for $1.25. Here is a picture of their fireplace area. Oops. It's not too far from the Scioto River, though. The Whetstone flows into the Scioto River a few miles downstream. There is a little settlement there called Franklinton. We haven't chosen a name for our village yet. While we were putting up the cabins, we just called it Liberty. That's the name of the township we'll be living in." "The cabins," Mama put in, "they're what I want to hear about. How many did you build? Tell me about our cabin." "Well, Lavisa, we rolled up 11 log cabins and a meeting house. The meeting house can be used for a school and for our meetings, even for a church until we can build one. It is also made of logs. The forest-covered hills is where our settlement will be. We had to clear trees away before we could even begin to think of putting up cabins. We cut down trees for days before we started rolling the logs into the cabins." "Did you remember what I asked for?" Mama asked anxiously. "Did you fix up a table in the middle of our cabin?" "I sure did," Lavisa. "Found the biggest stump and leveled it up good and proper. Then we rolled up the cabin around the stump. Now you have the sturdiest table west of the Ohio River." "How many cabins did you build, Papa?" asked Hannah, still thinking about how funny it would be to have a tree stump for a table. "We built 12 cabins to make a square around the center of the village, so there would be a commons where we would gather. And all around is such fertile soil. You could see the plums, crabapples, and grapes growing wild. They should be ripe just about the time we get there. And Jed and Hannah, I've got good news for you. There are very few rocks in the soil. You'll be rid of the job of gathering and piling up rocks in the fields every spring after the thaw, the way you do here in Berlin." Papa winked at Jed, who was grinning his widest grin. So think about that job. They are 8 years old, and they have to gather up the rocks in the field every spring after it thaws. Think about maybe what jobs you do around your house. Do you gather up rocks? Probably not. A few days later, on August 11th, James Coburn called a meeting of the Scioto Company to report to the entire group. There were important decisions to be made. It was decided that every family would pay $2 to begin a Liberty Fund. James Coburn and Levi Buttles would purchase the books. It was also decided that the town hereafter would be called Worthington. So again, they every family kind of donated $2 to start a fund for this town. Think about now, again, what in today's world in your life could you buy for $2? Think about it. Probably not very much compared to what they could buy back then. All right, I will be back tomorrow for chapter 2. Bye, guys.